Welcome to Real Money, Real Life, the podcast where we get real about money and the messy human stuff that comes with it. I'm Linda Grizely, financial wellness speaker, personal finance educator, and creator of the Me Money Method. This is the show for people who feel behind financially and want to finally understand money and make confident decisions that work in their real life. Because money isn't just math, it's life, and you deserve to feel confident with money and good about how you spend it. Hello, everyone. If you're listening, you're one of the real ones, the ones willing to question default decisions and run the numbers for yourself. Selling your home is one of the largest financial transactions most people will ever make. For many, hiring a real estate agent feels automatic. And in this episode, we're going to explore whether that default makes sense. We'll discuss when selling by owner could save meaningful money, when hiring an agent is absolutely the smarter move, and how to evaluate your personal situation without emotion or fear driving the decision. Today's guest is Tim Street, aka the FSBO Guy. He's a successful real estate agent, tech entrepreneur, and former active duty Marine who now works full-time teaching homeowners how to get the absolute best price for their home and the best outcome for their families. Welcome, Tim.
Oh my gosh, Linda, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. And I'm just thrilled to meet the audience. Hi, guys. How are you?
Yeah, so I'm going to love diving into your story because I actually started out in real estate a long time ago. And so I'm familiar with it, but I'm curious how a real estate agent gets led into and pivots to teaching homeowners how to sell by owner.
It feels kind of awkward. It's like a barber teaching people how to cut their own hair, right? It is. Yeah. Well, very simply put, I never grew up wanting to be involved in real estate. I actually didn't have any clue what I wanted to do. I just know I wanted to do something cool. And that's why I joined the Marine Corps. I thought that was pretty cool. And after realizing that, hey, it's just another job, there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape, I did learn something that I never wanted to be involved with the federal government ever again. It was way too much bureaucracy, even there. And so that's where I found the beauty of entrepreneurship. I loved the meritocracy involved in starting your own company and watching it flourish or not based on your decisions. And after years and years of living out of a suitcase, and it was a great life, and I'm very grateful for it, it still was just too much. And I had little girls that were growing up, becoming teenagers. They needed a dad. And that's when I decided I was going to be done living out of a suitcase. I got into real estate investing. And part of being a real estate investor, I think, is being as close to the transaction as possible. And that involved me getting my real estate license. And it was only after that I realized, hey, not only am I good at acquiring my own properties and building out my own portfolio, I kind of had a great knack, pulling from some of the skills I learned in my startups on how to really create bidding wars and attract large audiences to compete for an asset, being a house. And I was able to help people sell their home, and it was great. But the reality is there's a lot of incentives in this space that sometimes cause people to not act with, let's just call it, the most honest intentions. And so I decided, instead of getting involved in that whole mix, I was going to wash my hands of it all and kind of just teach people, smart people, that they are capable of doing this on their own. And if they wanted to do it, that option should be presented to them.
And that makes sense, right? People should always look at all the options and not just assume that there's only one way to go. So how are you trying to change how people think about working with a realtor versus doing it by themselves?
Great question, Linda. So what I do is I tell people from the very beginning that very often working with a real estate agent is going to be your best bet. I'm very forthright about that because there are situations where it's just ludicrous to try to do it on your own. Like I wouldn't advocate you do your own root canals, to save money from paying the dentist, or do your own knee surgery. There's certain things where it's best. So when you're in a complex situation, let's call it anything with a legal entanglement, maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a death, maybe it's going through probate, maybe there's a foreclosure, something like that. Please, for the love of all that's holy, do not try to DIY your home sale. Pay that agent their fee and laugh all the way to the bank, because they are going to go through legal hell and back trying to get that home sold for you. It's good to have a professional involved. And let's face it, Linda, there's people out there, let's say you're a cardiologist who's out there saving lives. You're working 90-hour weeks. And I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you, hey, it's a better use of your time to go ahead and try to save $30,000, which you very well make in a day as a cardiologist, to sell your own home. So there's also a time value of money that I ask people to take into consideration. But now that's a big but here. My industry as a real estate agent, I'm complicit in this. We spend a lot of money convincing American homeowners that selling your home is scary and you're going to get sued and you're not going to know how to price it. And all of that is crap. I'm here to tell you, if you can follow a process, you can do this. And I'm talking to the folks out there who are maybe retired, they have time on their hands, they enjoy DIY projects. I'm talking to the young families out there who are trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to come up with money for a college fund? Maybe mom stays at home, maybe dad stays at home, whatever it is. While they're home, they can absolutely go through this very step-by-step system and learn how to sell their home on their own and maybe save themselves $20, $30, $40,000. That either gives them, a great start to a college fund, or for the older folks, maybe an earlier retirement.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that you put the time value of money in there, because that's a big thing, because it's going to take a lot of time. It's not like you just stick a sign
Yeah.
in your yard and you're good to go. Right.
No, it's
And
tough.
yeah. So I think most people just automatically hire an agent, right? They don't even
Mhm.
think twice about it. They're just like, oh, I'm going to sell my home. I
Yep.
need a real estate agent.
Yep.
So what would be the reasons why they would not automatically do that? Like, what would make them
Yeah,
pause and think?
for sure. So one of the things that I learned when I was in the tech space, and I was in charge of putting together sales teams, and a huge predictor of success in my little area of sales was product familiarity. If I could take somebody who didn't have great communication skills, they maybe didn't look you in the eye when they spoke, or they didn't speak with a smile, all these things that matter when you're doing interpersonal communication. And I could take somebody who had absolutely unmatched levels of knowledge about the product that we were selling, and I could boost them into a top tier salesperson in no time. And the reason I tell that story is there's so many people out there that are just convinced that they don't know how to sell their home, when in reality, there are few subject matter experts that are even close to being on par with where you are, because you've lived in your home for 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 30, I don't know. But you have more, I'll put it this way, you have more experience than I do when I walk through your home with a clipboard for 30 minutes, looking at all the neat things you've done to the home. And I'm writing down, I'm taking notes, and I'm darn good at selling homes. My wife and I, we are darn good. When I was actively doing it, we were great. We would sell homes for above asking price almost every time. They'd be off the market the first weekend. And this wasn't during the good times either. This is during the hard times. But even with that said, I would hate to go up against somebody who lived in that home for 5, 10, 15 years and try to do a better job selling that product, because they know what stair creaks. They know what curtains to draw when the sun is rising, when everybody's eating breakfast in the morning. They know how many people they can pack into the family room during Thanksgiving. These are beautiful niche levels of knowledge that I, as an agent, could never possess, but people take for granted. They don't know how much that matters. And so when you're having a real grounded conversation with a prospective buyer, having that depth of knowledge puts you head and shoulders above and beyond what an average real estate agent is going to be able to provide.
Which is really interesting that you say that, because most of the times in the transactions that I've been anyway, and I've bought and sold several properties, but it's almost like you're not allowed to talk to the buyer or the
Yes,
seller. Like, it's
I
like
know.
there's like this unspoken rule, like you don't talk. And the thing is that there's so many things, like in the house I live in right now, I have questions. Like, what's under this? There's a plank floor, and I'm like, what's under it? You
Yeah.
know? I got to take my house apart to figure out what's underneath it. I'm like, I want to know, is there a hardwood floor under there? Because most of these houses were built with hardwood floors, and this one just happens to have something laying over the floor. And I'm like, okay, well, how bad is it then? Like, there probably is, but is it just horrible? If I pull up one corner, is it going to look great? But then as I rip it all up, and am I going to find the middle of it's completely destroyed? I want to know, but I never got the information on who the seller was, because it was just this unspoken rule. You don't talk to them.
It's wild too, Linda, because I have to say there's a cynical side of me that operated a certain way before I got my license and did the actual job. The cynical side of me believed that real estate agents were dishonest and that they were overpaid for the work they did. And I believe that they were just trying to protect their little power structure, which is why they wouldn't let you talk to the seller. I've evolved on that. Having done the job now, I realize how ignorant I was to believe those things. And the truth is, it's always somewhere in the middle. There are people out there who operate that way for sure. And real estate agents like me, we deserve the horrible reputation that we have because a lot of the things we do is just so silly. I don't know why we insist on, but I'll tell you, the worst people I've ever met in my life were real estate agents, and the best people I've ever met in my life are also real estate agents. So it's just real estate agents are like teachers and lawyers and soldiers. There's a bottom 10% to every group. And unfortunately, that bottom 10% tends to have the biggest microphone and they tend to be the loudest, which kind of gives us all a reputational challenge. But to get back to what you're saying, there are actual real good reasons why real estate agents tried to manage communications. It's because a lot of times buyers can sometimes say things that they don't even realize are actually illegal. If they were to tell somebody who's looking, whether this person made an offer on the house or not, said, yeah, this house would be great if you have kids, or this house is great for families, that's actually a fair housing violation. And I know that sounds so stupid because you're like, wait, are we in the United States? Do we not have a First Amendment? Are we not allowed to say what we want to say? Sadly, the courts have found that when you're engaging in commerce, no, you don't really have a First Amendment. And so there are times when I was buying houses before I had my license, I'm like, this is just gatekeeping. This is dumb. I should be able to talk directly to this other party. And for the most part, that's true. When I was representing homes, I would always allow the parties to communicate. I just try to keep guardrails around those conversations to make sure that my seller didn't accidentally say something that would get them in legal hot water.
Interesting. Yeah. And I guess that's why we always see great schools and,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't say anything about kids. It talks about the schools, which is in effect talking about kids.
Yes, I know. It's like great schools. Oh, good. I'm going to tell my grandma. It's like, we know what you're getting at. It's just thanks to the litigious society and how everybody tries to get a lawsuit out of everything. It like we have to tiptoe around the silliest things. When I just wish we could go back to a time where we just like, yeah, there's an 8-foot chunk of plywood in the middle of that floor, Linda. So if you pull up that carpet, be prepared for that. How nice would that be to know? And
Right.
no courts needed.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about how complicated it is to actually sell by owner. Because, like I said, you can't just go stick a sign in the yard. Obviously, you need to advertise it. You need to come up with some copy, the words that are going to sell it, great schools. What else? How complicated is it to do the FSBO?
I'm glad you asked. There's an old saying, it's about something being simple but not easy. And that's how I look at selling a home. It's a process. It's not like running a marathon. Running a marathon is simple, but it's not easy. It's simple in the sense that it's putting one foot in front of the other for 26.2 miles, and you don't stop until you cross the finish line. That's very simple. A 2-year-old could understand that concept. Nothing about it is easy. So when I look at selling a home, there are a lot of steps that have to take place. Are they high-level college calculus? No. Do they take time? Yes. Do they take discipline to do them in the right order? Absolutely. Do you have to pay attention to make sure that you don't inadvertently say or write something that can put you in legal hot water? Yes, of course. But the real estate industry, we make about $100 billion a year on commissions. So there is a lot of reasons why we try to make this process appear mysterious and complex. And sure, of course it is. If you try to do this just through like YouTube University and you read a few blogs and you think, okay, I'm going to go out and sell my home. Well, that's why For Sale by Owner has a 90% failure rate. It's because they're going into this ill-equipped for the mission. A lot of times the very most valuable asset people have in their portfolio. And to go out there and think that you're going to manage the sale of it without seriously understanding what it takes to do all the steps, it's fairly reckless. And that's why it often fails. And that's why it gets a bad rap. And what I tell people, I say, sure, yes, it can be complex, but if you have a blueprint, if you have somebody that you can follow a step, I sold a house for a guy once who rebuilt automatic transmissions in his garage. And this is like genius. Now that is like rocket science. Automatic transmissions are one of the most complex pieces of machinery that the human race has come up with. And he's doing it for funsies, his garage. And I'm like, brother, you do not need me. You can follow step-by-step processes. But for whatever reason, a lot of people still insist on using real estate, and good for them. They should. But I just love when people know that there's an option, that they don't always have to.
Yeah. That 90% failure rate, though, that's a high number. So that's scary.
It's huge. Yeah, it's scary. And actually, but everybody's like, dude, why do you even say this? Because I would rather disappoint people with the truth than comfort them with a lie. So here's the good news. The 10% who do successfully sell, in quotes, they often sell at a rate that's even less than their agent represented neighbors. So that's when people start throwing things at the computer right now or whatever they're listening on, and they're saying, Tim, why would you ever advocate for people to go FSBO? And I say that's because these are the people who have not done this with my system or any system, really. They've tried to chunk it together from bits and pieces of things they've read on the internet and things they've saw on Reddit and heard on YouTube. But in reality, of course, it's destined to fail. I mean, my gosh, would you get on an airplane with somebody who's a pilot who says, well, I never went to flight school, but I watched a YouTube video on flying the other day, so we're going to give it a swing. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting off that plane. And so that it's no wonder why the failure rate is high. But when you look at the people who have actually gone through and practice what I teach them, we have a can't lose guarantee basically in my program. You will never lose. You cannot. So the way my system works is you're going to successfully sell your home. And if you don't, if you give up and you say, Tim, I can't do this. I'm pulling the ripcord. This is too much. Maybe it's, I don't like dealing with aggressive buyers or agents trying to negotiate my price down, or I'm so tired and sick of people wanting to tramp through my house and look at stuff. Whatever it is, I call a top producing agent in your area, like one of the best guys I can find. And I, as a fellow real estate agent, will negotiate their commission down. And they will list your house for you and sell it successfully. Either way, you're going to save tens of thousands of dollars working with me, whether you do it yourself or you work with another agent.
Oh, wow. That's nice to know, because most people don't even know that they can negotiate down a commission with a real estate agent. But let's go back to your system. Tell us more about the system, like what needs to be in place, whether it's yours or their own or whatever. How does that work?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I don't want anybody here to think that my way is the only way. It's not. There's a million different ways that you can learn how to do this. The only reason I exist is I saw a gap in the marketplace where I'm like, look, nobody's really teaching homeowners that A, they can do this, and then B, how to do it. A lot of times I would find people out there saying, oh yeah, I did it. And they tell all these great stories about, yeah, I was able to sell without an agent and this is great, but they never really talked about how they did it. They were just homeowners. And then I see other people who tried to put together how they did it, but they were never really successful at it. And so by marrying those two things, I try to present something, but please, again, don't just take my word for it. I want people to go out there and do their own research and find out, hey, I would love to save this money, but honestly, I know I'm not the kind of person that's going to want to do this. I'll put it this way. If it was me, if I was listening to this show right now, I would never do the foolproof FSBO program because I'm so busy. There's no way I'm going to sell and try to list my own home. So I'm one of those people who wouldn't even eat my own dog food. So I know that sounds great. People are out there like, okay, this guy's telling me he wouldn't use his own stuff and he would never sell my owner. Yes, but also you have to understand, I'm not telling you this is right for anybody. I just want people to explore their options. And if it does fit into where you are in life, this might be a great option for you. So the first thing we always talk about is your fitment. Can you do this? Should you do this? And that's when we go through some of those gates, Linda, that we talked about at the beginning. Are you in any kind of legal situation? Are you going through a divorce? Do you have the time to do this? The time constraints. How much is your time worth? If your time is worth more than what you're going to spend paying a real estate agent, oh my gosh, pay the real estate agent and keep your time. Do you have the disposition to do this? Are you the kind of person that's going to fall to pieces when somebody doesn't like the color of your kitchen cabinets, or they talk about the fact that they can't wait to rip out that wall between the kitchen and the living room? Hey, my uncle helped build this house. I can't have them rip out that wall. Are you personally emotionally attached to this property? Because one of the double-edged swords of living in a home is A, you do get that unparalleled product knowledge, but B, you can have an emotional attachment. And if you are not the kind of person who could detach from this home and not see it as the place where your little girl took her first steps, but you see it as, hey, this is a thing, this is a product that somebody's going to make an offer on, and I'm going to have to leave it and all the memories behind and move on to my next phase in life. If you're not that kind of a person, again, it might be smart to call in a professional at that point.
Makes sense. So as far as the system goes, what do you teach them in your program?
So the first thing we talk about is pricing. One of the biggest or hardest pills to swallow, when I talk to homeowners, I let them know that there's one entity out there who gets to decide the value of their home. And unfortunately, it's not the person selling it. It's not the appraiser. It's not the lender. It's not me if I was your agent. There's one person out there who gets to decide the value, and that is the person writing the number on the check. The buyer gets to decide the value of the home. Now, you can decide what you're going to ask for it, but that doesn't mean anybody's going to decide that's the value of it. So the first thing we have to talk about is, number one, you need to relinquish whatever control you think you have over the value of your home. You don't get to decide that. The second thing we talk about is, well, now then, great, Tim, how do we define value the way that Amazon and the internet has trained all the consumers these days to find value? We do it through comparison. When I need a new coffee mug, I go on Amazon and I find a 32-ounce mug for the least expensive price that's going to get there tomorrow. That's all I care about. I'm a consumer and I'm trying to get the most value for my money. I need to compete. So if you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that's 1,800 square feet, and your neighbor is selling a 3-bed, 2-bath home that's 1,800 square feet, and they're asking $25,000 less than you, you better have a darn good, very apparent reason why your home is immediately worth more. Because I'm not saying people aren't going to look at your home, but they're not going to look at it first. It's going to be after they go through all the ones that are a better value first, and then they will get to you. And I'm telling you, in this market, what we need to focus on is being the first one looked at. There's advantages to that, because by being the first one looked at, we get to create social proof. There's a lot of people interested in it, and that consumer psychology spike, where now we have the scarcity principle working in our favor, and we have people fighting over this one asset. It drives the price of it up. So in many cases, the statistics show us many times a lower priced home actually sells higher than any other homes that are starting out higher, waiting for the bidder to come along. It's that because we're almost always going to be in a multiple offer situation, which drives the price up through a bidding war.
Interesting. That's the psychology of money right there, right?
Yeah, it truly is, Linda. And it's also kind of, and the thing I love about it is so counterintuitive. And it scares people. If they don't let me finish my sentence, they're like, no. I can't ask for less. I need the most. I'm like, let me get to that. I promise. I want you to get the most too. I want you thrilled that you went down this path. But the best way to get there is to start low. And then the other thing we talk about are some of the kind of hacks that I've learned throughout the years on how do we make sure that your home stands out against the rest. We do things called pre-listing inspections, which a lot of real estate agents out there will tell you are a waste of money because the buyer's going to get their own listing inspection anyway, but they're not seeing the whole picture. The reason we do a pre-listing inspection before your home hits the market is, number one, we want to truly know what's wrong with your house, because even brand new homes have punch lists of things that need to be fixed. So when we know what the buyer's going to find, because I'll tell you, as a buyer's agent, when I was working for buyers, one of my favorite weapons to wield was to take that inspection report and beat that other agent over the head and say, we need money off. There's this wrong, there's that wrong, and it's just predictable. Every single buyer is going to do that to you when you sell a home. So what if we could unload that gun before they even point it at you? That's what the pre-listing inspection does. We do the listing inspection. We triage it into 3 buckets: handyman fixes, which we just do, no questions asked; code and safety violations. Again, we do that, no questions asked. And then the third one is end of life, cosmetic, or taste-driven items that may or may not come up. We price those into the condition of the house. And then we have, and most residential building inspectors will come out and they will do a re-inspection based off their previous punch list and give you a cleaner copy of your inspection report. Now, when you have people come to look at your house, and you then say, hey, just so you know, I'm not dumb enough to think that you're dumb enough that you think this house is perfect. So here's all the problems that we found. I want you to be fully aware of everything that we know that's wrong. You'll see in here a list of the items that we fixed over the years, a list of the problems that still exist to this day, and that's been priced into the condition of the home. Therefore, if you go forward, you're doing this with this in mind. Well, now, when that guy does his building inspection and he comes back with the same list of problems that you already found, he can no longer beat you over the, hey, I want money off. I want it, because they went into that eyes wide open. And the second thing you've done is you've raised your esteem in the eyes of the buyer, because while every other seller out there is trying to hide and conceal all the problems that they have in their house, and oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't come up in the inspection, you're up there saying, hey brother, I'm an open book. Here you go. Here's what we've got going. And by having that kind of esteem working in your favor, when it comes down to negotiations, they know they're going to be dealing with a forthright person who's already established their bona fides of being credible from the get-go. So that when you say, hey, I'd love to work with you on this, but I'm up against a hard stop here, but maybe I can help you with your closing window, or maybe we can move out faster or work on a leaseback. But it just helps. Once you establish who you are at the beginning, the whole rest of the process is on a completely different level.
I agree with that idea, because it's just being transparent and upfront. And it's also preparing you as the seller for things, to know what things might have come your way, right? Is this something that you leave out on the counter so that people coming to look at the house can see it? Or is it something you wait until there's interest and then send it to them?
So it depends on what the interest level is of the home. What I love doing is a grand opening event. So, kind of tying in with my whole thing about having social proof in scarcity, a lot of homeowners make the mistake of saying, I want to make my home available so it's totally convenient for buyers to come see it anytime they want, because I don't ever want to miss an opportunity for a buyer to see my house. Listen, I love that. That is a beautiful, heartfelt sentiment where you're showing concern for everybody else. But I'm telling you, it's probably the worst way to spark interest in your home. The same way a velvet rope across a bar creates a line by having a velvet rope and it makes people want to get in there now because it's exclusive. This same cognitive psychology works on home buyers. I will have an open house. I will talk about it all week. We will have a 2 hour on Saturday open house where I want people fighting for parking lot spaces. I want people brushing past each other, getting into the bedrooms. I want there to be a crowd. I'll never forget this. I had one instance where we did this the right way and it was just bedlam. It was a zoo in a good way, but I had all kinds of people in this home because we had strategically underpriced it, which is what I talked about at the beginning, by being the most valuable home in the block. And I made it really difficult to come see, in the sense of, we're doing this for 2 hours and then it's not going to be able to be seen again for at least another week. People knew that. We put the word out there. I walked out just to get some air and there's a lady literally writing an offer to purchase on her steering wheel in the driveway. And I asked her, I said, well, what are you doing? She goes, I talked to my client and they heard two other people say they're going to put an offer on this home. We want to make sure ours gets in there today. So why? Is that home special? No. Was it necessarily bigger, nicer bathrooms than the other ones we were competing in the area? No. Well, then why were people competing for this? It's because the best way to spark that scarcity mindset in an individual is to show them that somebody else wants it. It's like we're all toddlers and you take a toy out of the closet, you give it to one toddler, they haven't seen it for 6 months, but they immediately want that toy and now they're going to fight over it. I'm sorry to tell you, Linda, we never outgrew that. We're still all toddlers mentally. So the reason I was bringing up that story is you asked a great question about how do we present this info to the buyers. I prefer to do a QR code or a digital brochure where we attach it. I mean, we're not hiding anything. If there's things on there that we're sensitive about, perhaps perhaps it's a seller who would absolutely love to fix what they know is a significant flaw in their home, but they just don't have the money to do so. Maybe they're a little bit less open about that. They don't want to share that with the world that they're having money problems. Of course, yeah. I mean, it's all going to be, and this is what's beautiful about doing this on your own, is you're able to decide, hey, exactly how many of my kind of personal secrets do I want in the world? What do I want to say? How do I want this person to think of me 10, 15, 20 years down the line when they think about this relationship or this transaction that they had with me? So that's what I love about I just want to give people this power to make these decisions and have that authority over their own transactions.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the toddler part, because part of what I talk about on the show is mindsets and obstacles and the psychology behind things. So I think there's probably people that would not even consider for sale by owner, right? And then there's other people who are overconfident in thinking that they can sell by owner. Talk to us about those types of beliefs, one way or the other, and how people can overcome those.
Well, I love that you talk about the psychology behind things because it's just so important. And as much as we like to convince ourselves that, hey, we're intelligent and we're rational and we're always consistent and we're never hypocritical, I'm sorry to tell you, we're all of those things, like a lot. And so the faster you realize that, and the faster that you realize, like, hey, maybe there are some limiting beliefs operating in my brain right now, an artificial ceiling that I may have built for myself that doesn't really exist. Everybody's a hero in their own story. Maybe when I look at myself in the mirror, I see Mr. Universe. When everybody else looks at me, they think, God, that guy's got to get to the gym, and is that a danger? Absolutely. What I will find is, if you come into this program with a level of overconfidence that maybe you shouldn't have, those people tend to realize really quick what they've gotten themselves into. And they're usually the first ones to kind of pull the ripcord and say, hey, Tim, you remember that whole agent thing? You could do the introduction for me. Let's talk about that. The people who I've found who are underconfident, but they've begrudgingly just said, you know what? I know I can't do this, but I'm going to hear what this clown on the internet has to say anyway, and they come into my product. Those are the ones I usually have a ton of success with, because once we're able to kind of break down why they believe what they believe, they realize that a lot of those beliefs aren't grounded necessarily in truth or reality, but just in perception or things that they've been forced to believe through, whether it's programming in the media, whether it's advertising campaigns by an industry, whatever it is. A lot of times, once we're able to kind of break down those barriers and let them really understand, like, hey, you're capable of doing this and so much more, that I love seeing those stories. So those are the ones that make me feel great. I love seeing that, because you see it transpire into other parts of their lives where they're like, well, man, I've believed I couldn't do this for so long. What else have I believed that am I, can I bench press 300 pounds, or can I run a 7-minute mile? Can I ride my bike without, getting winded by the end of the driveway? My cardiologist says I can, or my doctor says I can, and this, and the other thing, but man, I wonder. And you see them starting to do things. And it's such a great chain reaction to set off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If someone's considering selling their home, what steps should they take now? Let's say they're thinking, like, I'm considering maybe next year, I want to get through this school year, whatever. What things should they start thinking about in advance?
I love understanding people's why. One of the common misconceptions I hear people say all the time is, well, interest rates are so high, that's why people aren't moving. I don't know about you. I know myself, and the millions of dollars of homes I've sold, I've never had one person tell me that they're moving because the interest rates were good. Never once. People move, but moving is a giant pain in the butt. Let's face it sucks. Nobody likes to. I don't even like cleaning out my closets in the spring. So I can't even imagine having to pack up all your stuff. Every time I've done it, I swore would be my last time. Every time I'm just like, I'm never doing this again. This is terrible. So when people move, it's because there's a forcing function. Maybe it's a happy one. There's a new birth. Maybe our family's growing. We got a new job opportunity. Maybe it's a sad reason. Maybe it's a divorce, or I guess I could be happy too, depending on who you're divorcing, whatever. But maybe it's a sad, maybe somebody died, or maybe you lost your job. There's always a reason. And so one thing I like people to do is define why you're doing this, because that's going to matter when things get tough. Is you have to remember the why. Why am I engaging in this? I'm doing this because I don't want my child to have to join the Marines because they couldn't afford college. That's why I'm doing this. And that's going to get you through the tough parts or the tedious parts, where maybe you're doing things where, man, I sure would like to go to the beach today, but instead I'm, doing a comparable market analysis on what all these other houses are selling for around me, so I know how to peg the value of my house. So figure out your why. After you figure out your why, it's important to then say, well, what path is best for me? Is this even within the realm of possibility to sell by owner and maybe keep those $30,000 in commissions? And if so, I designed a tool. It's a 2-minute quiz. It's 7 questions, and it will give you a brutally honest answer. It'll tell you, hey, this is either a good move for you, let's talk further, or tell you what, this would be the worst idea in the world based on what I've seen. But again, we're still not going to turn our back on you. We still have options. Again, we'll introduce you with an agent who can help you. But at the end of the day, I don't want people to ever walk into this situation not knowing. And that's what that quiz is designed for.
So the quiz helps them decide whether it's better to go for sell by owner or work with an agent. That's what the quiz helps them figure out. And then
That's
if it
correct.
does say you're best working with an agent, then you can help them find one, and you can help actually negotiate a commission, right? To me, that's huge.
Yeah, I'll do that. Even if you don't have to be my student, you don't have to have paid me a dime. I'll do that just because you came to me and asked for help. And that's kind of what I do now. Is I try to just, my life is insanely incredible, like blessed beyond words. And I'm at a point now where all these years before me, all I had to do and all I had to focus on was just keeping myself alive and keeping my family happy and just making it to the next paycheck. And after doing that for enough years, some of those things that I worked on in my youth are finally bearing fruit. And now I can afford to do something that doesn't revolve around that. And I'm able to just do stuff because it feels good to do it. It's cool to help people. It's cool to see people succeed. And that's kind of where I am at this point.
All right. So who needs to find you? Who should come and take your quiz?
Well, you should come check us out. If you're looking at selling a home, you've thought about selling a home, if you've gotten to the end of a transaction before after selling a home and you've wondered, oh my gosh, that's a big line item that I just paid the real estate agents. What exactly did I get for that? What was my return on investment there? We should be talking. It's not because I can necessarily help you at this phase in your life. Maybe you're never going to sell again. Maybe you're like me. I plan on dying in this house. I don't plan on ever thing again. So they're going to have to wheel me out of here in a pine box. I'm sorry. But if you're somebody who is facing one of those really cool or maybe not so cool decision points in your life, and you're thinking, man, I really do need to figure out where I'm going next, it doesn't hurt to explore your options. Take the quiz, find out where you are. And then from that point, again, we can decide, mutually, hey, this makes sense for you or this doesn't make sense for you, but here's where we should go from there.
Great. Tell us how they can find your quiz and how they can find you.
So I'm all over YouTube. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. If you just look up Foolproof FSBO, which I know is a mouthful, I tried to make this as foolproof as possible so even people like me could understand it. And FSBO, for those who don't know, it's an acronym in the industry. It stands for For Sale by Owner. It's spelled FSBO. So if you go to foolprooffsbo.com/quiz, that's where you'll find the 2-minute quiz. If you go to Foolproof FSBO on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you'll find my content on there. And something I tell people all the time, you don't have to pay me anything. Just go watch all my stuff. I give everything I know away for free on those social media. I do have a coaching program. I would say most people probably don't need it. If you're one of those people who doesn't, you have to have organization, you have to have a syllabus, you have to have course modules laid out for you, then yes, it might be worth the money for you. But if you're like one of those folks who's kind of like me, I don't really need that. I love binge consuming information on YouTube, and you don't mind that, man, just go check out my YouTube stuff and you're going to get 90% of the way there just for my free stuff. I legit don't hold anything back.
Great. Thanks so much.
I love your psychological approach to things. I love that you talk about mindset. And these are big buzzwords that get thrown around a lot, but I love that you actually put them into practice. And one of the hardest parts I found is getting people to relate to what mindset means, because people hear it and they think, oh, this is just some feel good crap. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's legitimately the very foundation that you build your life on. And if you can just take a second to humble yourself enough to realize that how important that mindset is and how it affects the way you talk to your kids, the way you talk to your spouse, the way that you manage your money, the way that you approach cars at a red light and whether you're going to be road ragey or not. Like all of that stems from so I'm so glad that you talk to people about that. And I wish you the best. I want you to keep up the great work.
Oh, thanks so much. All right. I have a closing nugget for our people, and that is before outsourcing your largest asset, ask one question. Am I choosing this because it's right for me or because it's what everyone else does? Thanks so much for being my guest today, Tim.
Oh my gosh, Linda, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure to be here.